I'm really eager to get into Bill 100 and what happened last night. Can you kind of walk us through um, what happened from your perspective?
I'll tell you as much as we know. Bill 100 came up, and that's the bill that Doug Ford put in place as he was wrapping up the state of emergency that he called for the trucker convoy. And I was in Ottawa, spoke at that trucker convoy. Actually, the first weekend it was there, I was there, and the New Blue Party was able to get some microphones and speakers on a flatbed, and Ezra spoke and others because there was no mic set up on that first day. So we're happy to help out. And he came out with a state of emergency, and he was quickly trying to wrap that up. And he introduced Bill 100 to give the government some of those powers going forward, which is basically clamping down on businesses or others that are somehow connected to any kind of protest going forward without any due process. So he's trying to make these things permanent under Bill 100. And my wife, Belinda, the MPP of the riding of Cambridge, voted against it and debated against it at second reading, which is the first opportunity to talk about the bill. And then it was going into third reading, but they had passed a motion with the help of the NDP and the Liberals a couple of weeks ago, where at any moment they can extend debate and votes on a piece of legislation past 6 o'clock. And so that's one part of the story. The other part of the story is it's part of the orders or the standing orders or the rules, whatever you want to call them, of the legislature, that the House Leader of the government, so the PC's House Leader, supposed to inform the other MPPs what's on the agenda for the week ahead. And I still can't wrap my head around how these orders can be ignored whenever they feel like it. But they've been doing this to Belinda for the last year and a half, where they will inform the other MPPs what's going on and withhold the information from Belinda. And we've seen the Liberals and the NDP and the PCs gang up on Belinda before and try to sneak motions in to say, if you don't wear a mask, you can't be here. And they snuck that one through. Or the other one was, if you're not vaccinated, you can't be here. And a lot of times, she's the only one speaking out for a long time, right? Because some of the stuff didn't impact Roman, and Randy wasn't in the legislature for whatever. We don't need to get into the details of that. But so sometimes Belinda had to be there from 9 till 6 every day, and then after 6 for a year and a half to make sure. And at some points when they catch her off guard, they sneak stuff in. And last night was one of those times. They didn't mention anything about the agenda for the week. She was there asking them about critical race theory in the morning. And seemingly the debate was going to end at 6 o'clock. They were scheduled to come back after next week. So next week's constituency break, they're scheduled to come back the week after to sit and debate. But they decided they're going to have the third and final debate and vote on Bill 100 last night at like 8 or 9 o'clock at night. No notice to the MPPs, or at least my wife didn't get notice. I don't know about some of the others. There was at least one independent who got notice. And that's a whole other topic of how he was able to figure out that it was going on at 9 o'clock at night. And they passed it with very little scrutiny. And so at second reading, Belinda, Roman Baber, Lindsay Park, and the Green MPP were able to get together and stand up and add some scrutiny to the bill passing because they were given courtesy to know that it was coming up. But on third reading, they broke their own rules. The Ford PCs extended the vote at night yesterday, passed it without any scrutiny. I don't think there's been any media coverage on it, and Belinda wasn't able to hold their feet to the fire and debate against it last night. Go ahead, Wendy.
We can say that there was media coverage on it because we broke the story today at noon.
Good for you guys. That's great.
Well, we didn't. I don't know if we broke it, but we certainly reported on it. Can't say for sure that we were the first.
No,
but,
not the first.
I know that you were putting out messages about it early this morning. So, and it certainly is a concern, huge concern for me, because it seems to be a direct assault on freedom. It strips away more rights. It directly targets protests, freedom of expression, freedom of speech. It gives broad sweeping powers to police officers to lay charges and basically convict people on the spot, confiscate property, including vehicles, driver's licenses. even take people off to jail. And the fines are substantial. Some of these penalties are up to 10 years in jail for some of the offenses that they're outlining. Am I off the mark here? Am I interpreting this correctly?
No, they already have these tools, right? If a protest is blocking the bridge to the United States, they have these powers federally, provincially. But what they're doing in this bill is they're saying they're getting rid of all due process. So just shut down your business, right? Or if you happen to be donating to someone that's in a protest, or I don't know, the problem with these bills, guys, is they're so broad that you can't even predict how they're going to be used, right? That's the ultimate problem. So you can get all the lawyers you want, but they're just only going to give you a guess, right? So if someone lives in your home, or someone is out of a job and they're living with you, your son or your daughter, and they happen to go to this protest, does this bill mean that they can go after the person feeding the unemployed person, or can they go after the employer of the person? Who knows? These guys are just making up these broad laws, stuffing him into a bill, and the whole giveaway with that bill. There's a line in there that says, in 12 months, the government has to review how the bill was used. That's a straight up giveaway of they have no idea what they're doing, because they're putting in the bill as a defense to any legal proceedings to say it's unconstitutional. They're putting right into the bill this idea of a review of how the enforcement of the bill is happening as like a backup plan to any arguments in court. But by that time, guys, in 12 months, who knows, right? The effect of this bill is to put a chill on people getting involved in the political process. That's the effect. And it actually worked, because after the trucker convoy, we started naming candidates for the New Blue Party. And we were at, I think, close to 115 back in January or February. Sorry, I can't remember the exact date. But after the trucker convoy and Doug Ford doing state of the emergency, we had a couple candidates who backed out, a few candidates who backed out and said, I don't know, like, what does this mean? Are they going to come after us? And it's not accurate. There shouldn't be any concern when you get involved in the political process that that's the case. It's different, comparing two different things. But this is what this is designed to do: put a chill, and it's not informing people accurately as to what's in the bill. And most Ontarians are busy working and taking their kids to school and feeding their families. They're not going to sit there and decipher what's provincial jurisdiction and federal jurisdiction. So a lot of people think that what's in this bill is also the stuff that Justin Trudeau is doing federally. And so it's causing a lot of confusion. It's a terrible, terrible bill. And they didn't want any scrutiny. And they passed it last night, really late at night, 8, 9 o'clock, when every MPP thinks it's time to go. And then today, what they did, they put a last minute motion near the end of the day to say, oh, we're not going to come back to the legislature for 2 weeks. So they're going to come back April 28th. Instead of more question period before the election, they're going to come back April 28th, they say, do a couple of days for the budget, and then jump into the election campaign. It baffles the mind how a government can just, willy-nilly change the democratic process and accountability in the legislature, shut it down, go after hours, do whatever they want to avoid scrutiny. The whole system of how they've really destroyed it provincially has to be reviewed and looked at, because it's a lot different than federally.
Well, it certainly seems unconstitutional to me. I don't see how you just do away with due process.
Yeah, but the problem is you go through court, it'll take you a year or two, right?
Yeah.
And I've been saying to people that have been asking for a couple of years, the courts is the way we got to go. Jim, you're a lawyer, and I wasn't a litigator. I'm not a litigator. I did other types of law, but they would say, why isn't the New Blue Party starting a lawsuit? The solution here is not in court, because the court, it's a grinder, right? And you make one mistake, like we've seen with some of these court cases, you make one mistake in the process, and the government has all the tools and all the weapons. They can just punch it out on a technicality, right? It's a political question. And come June 2nd in the provincial election in Ontario, if we don't have a candidate in every riding, the PCs and the establishment parties are just going to say, see, we could do whatever we want. There's no impact. It doesn't cost us any votes. And so the solution has to be political. There has to be a place for people who are not happy with this stuff to both hear from someone and a political party and candidates a different alternative and also an option at the polls. So one part that I constantly am trying to provide an alternative viewpoint to is this idea that people should give up on politics. You can't give up. Like, that's why the vote's there. You can't give up on it.